The marble floor gleamed under the afternoon sun, streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows. Amira knelt beside her cleaning cart, her worn hands wringing a cloth over a bucket of soapy water. The silence in the executive corridor was thick until it shattered. "You." The voice cut through the air like a blade. Amira looked up. 3 men in tailored suits stood before her, their faces tight with barely contained rage. The one in the center, Tariq al-Mansouri, the company's chief operating officer, pointed at her with a trembling finger. "You stole from this family." Amira's breath caught. Around them, other employees slowed their steps, eyes flickering toward the scene before quickly looking away. I don't understand," she whispered. "Don't lie to us," Tariq hissed. "We have proof." The words hung in the air. Amira's hands went still. Her eyes dropped to the floor, and she said nothing. Al-Mansouri Holdings wasn't just a company, it was a dynasty. For 3 generations, the Al-Mansouri family had built an empire spanning real estate, construction, and international trade. Their headquarters, a glass tower in the heart of Dubai, stood as a monument to legacy, ambition, and unshakable pride. Sheikh Rashid al-Mansouri, the patriarch, had inherited the business from his father and transformed it into something legendary. Now in his late 50s, he carried the weight of that legacy in every decision, every meeting, every word. But legacy also meant pressure, and pressure created cracks. Amira Hassan had worked in that building for 6 years. She arrived before dawn and left after dark. Her uniform was always clean, her movements quiet, her presence invisible. To most people who passed her in the hallways, she didn't exist. She was just the woman who emptied the trash bins and wiped down the conference tables. Just the cleaner. But Amira had learned long ago that invisibility had its advantages. People said things around her they would never say to each other. They made mistakes they thought no one would notice. And she saw everything. If you've ever felt invisible where others held all the power, stay with this story. On this particular morning, Amira pushed her cart down the 7th-floor corridor toward the executive suite. The Sheikh's office was at the end of the hall, a corner space with windows overlooking the city. She had cleaned that office 1,000 times. She knew where every file belonged, which coffee stains never quite came out of the carpet, and that the Sheikh kept a photo of his late wife in the bottom drawer of his desk, a photo he looked at when he thought no one was watching. She knocked twice on the heavy wooden door. No answer. She entered quietly. The office was empty, pristine except for a few scattered papers on the desk. Amira began her routine. Dust the shelves, wipe the windows, empty the wastebasket. As she worked, her eyes drifted to the papers. Financial reports, acquisition documents, a contract with unfamiliar names. She didn't mean to read them, but years of education she'd never spoken about made the numbers jump out at her. Something was wrong. The figures didn't align, a decimal point in the wrong place, a sum that should have raised red flags but hadn't. She hesitated, her hand hovering over the papers. It wasn't her place. She was just the cleaner. But the mistake was significant, potentially catastrophic. She straightened the papers carefully and left the office. That evening, as she was preparing to leave, she saw Tariq al-Mansouri walking toward the elevators with 2 other executives. She recognized them, Khalid, the chief financial officer, and Samir, the head of acquisitions. They were laughing, their voices echoing in the empty hallway. She thought about saying something, but the words died in her throat. Who was she to question them? The elevator doors closed, and Amira went home. 3 days later, the accusation came. Amira was in the break room on the 2nd floor, eating a small lunch she'd brought from home, when Tariq appeared in the doorway. His face was cold, his eyes hard. "We need to speak with you. Now." She followed him to a small conference room. Inside, Khalid and Samir were already seated. The door closed behind her with a heavy click. "Sit down," Tariq said. She sat, her hands folded in her lap. Tariq slid a folder across the table. Open it. Inside were bank statements, transaction records, her name, her account number, deposits she'd never made, large deposits. "You've been stealing from this company," Tariq said. His voice was calm, controlled, but underneath it was something sharp. "These transfers came from an offshore account tied to one of our vendors. The money was redirected into your personal account. I didn't," Amira stammered. "Those aren't, I've never seen." "Save it," Khalid interrupted. "We have the evidence. You've been taking money for months." Amira's mind raced. She didn't understand. She'd never stolen anything. She barely made enough to cover rent, but the documents in front of her were real. Her name, her account. How? "This is a mistake," she said quietly. "I don't know how this happened, but I didn't do this." Tariq leaned forward. "Then explain how your account received over 200,000 dirhams in the last 6 months. Her mouth opened. No words came. Because there was no explanation, not one they would believe. "You're fired, effective immediately," Samir said. "And we're filing a police report." Amira's vision blurred. Her chest tightened. "Please," she whispered. "I have a daughter. I need this job." "I didn't—" "You should have thought about that before you decided to steal from us," Tariq said. He stood. "The meeting is over. Security will escort you out." She wanted to scream, to defend herself, to demand they listen, but she knew it wouldn't matter. To them, she was already guilty. To them, she was nothing. Sheikh Rashid Al-Mansouri sat in his office, staring at the contract in front of him. The acquisition of the Mediterraneo Industrial Complex had been in the works for over a year. It was the largest deal in the company's history. 500 million dirhams, partnerships with European investors, a legacy project that would cement the Al-Mansouri name for generations. But something felt wrong. He couldn't put his finger on it. The numbers looked solid. The terms were favorable. His executive team had assured him everything was in order. And yet, he reached for his phone and called his assistant. "Send Tariq to my office. Now." Tariq arrived within minutes. "Yes, Sheikh." Rashid gestured to the contract. "Walk me through the financials again. I want to make sure we haven't missed anything." Tariq's expression didn't change, but there was a flicker of something in his eyes. Hesitation. "Everything is as we discussed. Sheikh, the terms are excellent. The projections are conservative. This deal will generate significant returns." Rashid studied him. "You're certain?" "Absolutely." Rashid nodded slowly. "Then why does the cash flow projection show a shortfall in year 3? Tariq blinked. It's accounted for in the reserve fund." Rashid flipped to another page. "The reserve fund that's allocated at 0.05% instead of 0.5%. Silence. Tariq's jaw tightened. "That's a typo. A formatting error." Rashid closed the folder. "A typo that would cost us 50 million dirhams." Tariq opened his mouth, closed it. "I'll have it corrected immediately. See that you do." "And Tariq?" "Yes, Sheikh. Don't bring me another document until you're certain every number is correct." "Understood." Tariq left quickly. Rashid sat back in his chair, his fingers drumming on the armrest. A formatting error. He didn't believe that for a second. That evening, Rashid stayed late. The building was nearly empty. The hallways dark except for the soft glow of emergency lighting. He walked slowly, his mind turning over the contract, the mistake, the way Tariq had looked at him. As he passed the 7th-floor break room, he noticed a light on. Inside, one of the cleaning staff was wiping down the tables. An older woman, her movements slow and deliberate. He didn't recognize her. "Excuse me," he said. She looked up, startled. "Yes, sir? How long have you worked here?" 5 years, sir." She hesitated. "Almost 6. Do you ever notice—" He paused, searching for the right words. "Do you ever notice when something is out of place?" She studied him carefully. Her expression was unreadable. "I notice many things, sir, but it's not my place to say." He nodded. "Sometimes the people who see the most are the ones we overlook." She didn't respond. Rashid left her there, but the conversation stayed with him. The next morning, Rashid called an emergency meeting with his executive team. Tariq, Khalid, and Samir sat across from him, their faces calm but watchful. "I want a full audit of the Mediterranean deal," Rashid said. "Every contract, every transaction, every account." "Sheikh, that's not necessary," Khalid began. "I didn't ask if it was necessary. I'm telling you it's happening." Tariq shifted in his seat. "May I ask why?" "Because I don't make 500 million dirham mistakes, and neither should you." The room went silent. Rashid's gaze moved from one man to the next. "You have 48 hours. I want a report on my desk by Thursday. Understood?" They nodded. The meeting ended. But as they left, Rashid noticed something. Tariq and Khalid exchanged a glance, brief, barely perceptible, but it was there. Amira sat in her small apartment, staring at the wall. Her daughter, Layla, was asleep in the next room. The eviction notice lay on the table in front of her. She had 2 weeks. 2 weeks to find the money she didn't have, to explain to her daughter why they had to leave, to figure out what came next. She thought about going to the police herself. But what would she say? That she'd been framed, that she didn't know how the money got into her account. They would laugh at her. Or worse, they'd arrest her. She had no proof. No defense. No one who would believe her. Her phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. "You should have kept your mouth shut." Her hands trembled. She stared at the words. Then it clicked. The contract. The mistake she'd seen in the Sheikh's office. The numbers that didn't add up. Someone knew. Someone knew she'd seen it. Rashid received the audit report late Thursday night. He read it once, then again, then a third time. The numbers were wrong. Deliberately wrong. The Mediterranean deal had been structured to siphon funds into offshore accounts, accounts controlled by Tariq and Khalid. The scheme was sophisticated. Layers of shell companies, falsified invoices, decimal points moved to hide millions, and it had been going on for over a year. Rashid's hands shook as he set the report down. These were men he'd trusted, men his father had trusted, men who had sat at his table, attended his children's weddings, sworn loyalty to his family, and they had betrayed him. But there was something else in the report, a footnote, a small detail the auditor had included almost as an afterthought. The fraud had been discovered because of an inconsistency flagged by a low-level employee, a cleaner named Amira Hassan. Rashid frowned. He remembered the woman in the break room, the one who noticed things. He picked up his phone and called security. "I need the personnel file for Amira Hassan, and I need to know why she's no longer employed here." The file arrived within the hour. Rashid read it in silence. Amira Hassan. Age 41. Hired 6 years ago as a cleaner. No disciplinary issues. Consistent performance reviews. And then, 3 days ago, terminated for theft. He read the accusations, the bank statements, the evidence, and then he read her background. Master's degree in finance from the American University of Beirut. 10 years of experience as a financial analyst. Former senior consultant at a European investment firm. Rashid sat back. His chest tightened. Why was a woman with this background working as a cleaner? He kept reading. Personal notes from her hiring interview. Seeking stable, low-profile employment due to family circumstances. Daughter requires ongoing medical care. Prefers positions with flexible hours and minimal travel. She had been overqualified. Deliberately underemployed. And no one had questioned it. Because she was just the cleaner. Rashid picked up his phone again. "I need Amira Hassan's current address. And I need a car. Now." The knock on the door came just after midnight. Amira froze. Her daughter stirred in the next room. She approached the door slowly, her heart pounding. "Who is it?" "Sheikh Rashid al-Mansouri." "Please open the door." She hesitated, then unlocked it. Rashid stood in the hallway, alone. No security, no assistance, just him. "May I come in?" She stepped aside. He entered, his eyes taking in the small apartment, the worn furniture, the medical equipment in the corner, the eviction notice on the table. He didn't sit. "Miss Hassan, I owe you an apology." She said nothing. "I've read the audit report. I know what happened. You saw the error in the Mediterranean contract, didn't you?" Her throat tightened. She nodded. "And when my executives realized you'd seen it, they framed you." Another nod. Rashid's jaw clenched. "I'm sorry. I'm sorry that my company, my family's company, treated you this way. I'm sorry that men I trusted put you in this position. And I'm sorry I didn't see it sooner." Amira's eyes filled with tears. She looked away. "Why are you here?" "Because you saved my company. And because I want to make this right." He reached into his jacket and pulled out an envelope. Inside is a formal apology, a reinstatement of your employment, if you want it, and compensation for what you've been through. She took the envelope with shaking hands. "What about them?" "Tariq, Khalid, Samir. They'll face the consequences. Legal, financial, public. They betrayed this family, and they will answer for it." She nodded slowly. "And me? What happens to me?" Rashid met her eyes. "That's your choice. You can return to cleaning, if that's what you need. Or," he paused, "or I can offer you a position in our finance department, a role that matches your qualifications. Your experience, the invisibility you've carried for 6 years doesn't have to define you." Amira looked at him for a long moment. Then she glanced toward her daughter's room. "I'll think about it." 2 weeks later, Amira walked into the Al-Mansouri Holdings building. Not through the service entrance, through the front doors. She wore a simple suit. Her hair was pulled back. Her hands, once rough from cleaning chemicals, now held a briefcase. Employees she'd worked alongside for years passed her in the lobby. Some recognized her. Most didn't. She took the elevator to the 8th floor, the finance department. Her new office was small but bright, a desk, a computer, a window overlooking the city. On the desk was a handwritten note from Sheikh Rashid. "Thank you for seeing what others missed. Welcome back." Amira sat down. She opened her laptop, and she got to work. In the weeks that followed, the story of what had happened spread quietly through the company. Tariq, Khalid, and Samir were gone, arrested, charged. Their names removed from every plaque, every document, every record. The Mediterranean deal was restructured. The fraud was exposed. And the company, though shaken, survived. Rashid addressed the staff in a company-wide meeting. He didn't sugarcoat what had happened. He didn't make excuses. He stood at the podium and spoke plainly. "We failed. I failed. We allowed arrogance and assumption to blind us to the truth. We overlooked someone who could have helped us because we didn't think she mattered." He paused. "That ends now. In this company, everyone matters. Every voice, every observation, every person. Because the truth doesn't care about titles or status, it simply is, and we're responsible for seeing it." Amira watched from the back of the room. When the meeting ended, several employees approached her, some to apologize, some to thank her, some just to introduce themselves properly for the first time. She accepted their words with quiet grace. But she didn't forget. She didn't forget what it felt like to be invisible, to be accused, to be powerless. And she carried that memory with her. Not as a burden, but as a reminder that dignity isn't given. It's inherent. And no one, no matter how powerful, has the right to take it away. Months later, on a quiet afternoon, Rashid stopped by Amira's office. He knocked lightly on the open door. "Do you have a moment?" She looked up and nodded. He stepped inside. I wanted to ask you something. When you saw the error in that contract, why didn't you say anything? She considered the question. Because I didn't think anyone would listen. He nodded slowly. And now, she said, meeting his eyes, I know they will. He smiled. Faintly, sadly. Good. That's how it should have been from the beginning. He turned to leave, then paused. Miss Hassan? Yes. Thank you. For everything. She didn't respond, but as he walked away, she felt something she hadn't felt in years. Not vindication, not triumph, just quiet, steady peace. The Sheikh's mistake wasn't cruelty. It was assumption. The assumption that a person's value could be measured by their title, that someone in a uniform couldn't possibly understand the complexities of finance, that invisibility meant irrelevance. But assumptions, no matter how confidently held, crumble in the face of truth. And truth, as Amira had proven, doesn't need permission to be heard. It simply needs someone brave enough to see it. If this story made you think about the people you overlook, the voices you ignore, or the assumptions you carry, maybe take a moment to reconsider. Sometimes the truth is right in front of us. We just have to be willing to see it. If this story reached you in any way, tell us in the comments what city you're watching from. If stories like this matter to you, consider subscribing. More are coming.